Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Psychedelics Today. Today's live stream is with Becca Kacanda. How are you today?
I'm doing really good. I am in my studio, my art studio in Wisconsin. It is very hot here, so I'm really warm.
Amazing.
But yes, that's why you see all this stuff behind me. But yeah, I'm doing good.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us. You and I got connected, I think, through Court Wing, and I think I saw a lot of your material on X, and was appreciating where you were going. So, like, in way of introduction, um, in the way of introduction, I think what I know about you is that you went through the MAPS trial with MDMA. Um, and now I realizing you're an artist. I wish I knew that beforehand. Um, but yeah, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey through the life into the clinical trial, however much depth you want to get into it?
Sure. So yes, that is all correct. I was a MAPS uh, MDMA for PTSD phase 3 trial participant. I phased out about 3 years ago. Um, and I am also an artist, mostly doing community based artwork prior, like for many, many years. And I actually just graduated from a master's program in art therapy and counseling. So I have a very creative background. I think I might go. There's some relevance, I think, to um, my experience in the trial with that. So that might come up. But yeah, um, I had a great experience in the trial. Hard to know where exactly to jump to next, but overall, my experience in the trial was really amazing. And it was like the best decision I made regarding healing from PTSD and all the trauma that I had experienced. I joined X like in I think it was the end of October of 2024, so a few months after the FDA rejection for MDMA assisted therapy from MAPS, with the intention of sort of trying to figure out what was going on. And then a lot of other things happened from there,
Yeah.
which I guess we can go into that next a little bit.
Yeah, so I've had and the whole psychedelic scene has had an interesting go around what we're about to talk about, and it's very difficult to discuss. I've had so many academics call me to say, "Hey, like I'm afraid to talk to any of my peers about these folks.
Mm.
Can you talk to them?" I was always, very obliging. Um, and I happy to step in because I got beat up enough. So anyway, you
Yeah.
you experienced some unkind behavior. Do you want to kind of explain that?
Yeah. So, well, I'll say even as a clinical trial participant, I felt fear too. Like, oh my God, can I even share my story now without people thinking that it's something that it wasn't? Um, I started an X account, and I outed myself as a clinical trial participant in my bio. I just said I was a MAPS phase 3 trial participant and that I was just trying to follow along with what's going on. Tried to remain pretty neutral, but I just followed the accounts of like journalists and other public figures who were opinionated about um, the clinical trial or the FDA hearing, just to get all sides of the story. So that was how I joined. I think I said very little on, on my posts. I may have retweeted some people. I think you could probably tell that I was more on the like pro maps or pro clinical, it was clear that I had a good experience in the trial, but I was also trying to be open to the critiques. But within 48 hours of joining, um, someone sent me a direct message, somebody who I had not sent a direct message to or engaged with directly, as far as I recall. And this person is Sasha Cisco, who is I would say a Symposia orbiter or affiliate, like not an official member of Symposia, but is like thanked in the credits to like papers that Nashe has written as being like helping with editing. So just kind of within their sphere. Um, and Sasha reached out like, I would love to hear your story. Surely it's very valuable. Would you be interested in sharing? And I was like, yeah, I mean, sure. More thinking that we would have like a phone call, a brief phone call, get to know each other a little bit, something like that. But that's not the way it went. It kind of immediately went into Sasha like sending me a barrage of like video clips, audio clips, giant blocks of text of like excerpts from this and that, like very difficult to keep up with. I really couldn't even like, I was like, I don't really have the time. I was like, I thought you were interested in hearing my story. I can't, I'm in like grad school right now. But I did try to dig into some of them. And I would say like some of the ones that I watched, I was like, that's weird. But it's also not part of the MAPS trial. So kind of a stretch to relate them. There was one that he sent me, which we were talking about a little bit ago, which was a clip from a book about a MAPS clinical trial participant experience that was very alarming and was like framed in a way where it seemed very clear that what happened was like abusive, um, lots of inappropriate physical touching. And I was like, that's really alarming. I have the book and I also know this clinical trial participant. And I was like, I don't recall that that's the way the story went. Let me go to the page that you referenced the story from in the book. And I reread it and I was like, that's not what I gather from the story. Like it was framed in Sasha's paper in a really different way. It was put under the headline that said like, therapists cuddling clinical trial participants on the floor, something like that. And then it also said that this, patient was in a fetal position. It sounded like he was in a fetal position on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read the book, you would not come to that conclusion. He was sitting upright and he had had permission from the therapist ahead of time and in the moment that they could put a reassuring hand like on his shoulder. So anyway, I sent it to this, I just sent him a message. I was like, do you know that your story is being used in this paper? Did you give Sasha permission? No, absolutely not. What the fuck? That's not what happens. I'm so angry. I feel so misrepresented. I'm contacting my lawyer, like that type of thing. Which I think is what happened. This person doesn't want to be in the public eye, but all I can say is that the paper was changed shortly after that. There were edits that were made to it. And somehow Sasha's preprint like shrunk in size. So I think there's a lot of like very creative reframing of things that happens with Symposia related writings. Nashe, Sasha, those are the two that I can really speak to, where there seems to be a lack of recognition or respect for that patient or that participant's experience, and that they think that their opinions and the way that they see it overrides the patient's experience. That's what I have seen them do. To some clinical trial participants. perhaps
Mm.
not all, perhaps the very well known and very well publicized abuse case, which really was abusive. Um, that's a different story, but I think you should really get permission from that participant to have their story represented before you start to apply your own opinions to it, because it can be really hurtful, as I saw with him and as I saw, as I experienced myself. So I think, I was already sort of extremely irritated with what I saw Nashay doing on Instagram and all of their Substack writings. I was already like, wow, this totally doesn't represent my experience with maps at all. Um, and I felt like it was being represented in a way that was very factual and like across the board. Um, and that was disturbing to me. Of course, Nashay will say, like, this is the psychedelic humanities. You guys don't understand how critiques work, systemic critiques, whatever, whatever. But then someone like Sasha, who is supposed to be in connection with Nashay, doesn't understand that either. So I'm like, is this us not understanding how critiques work, or is this you not communicating well? Because you have a lot of people in the field who are really misinterpreting what you're saying, and now you're just blaming it on them and not taking responsibility for your poor communication, in my opinion. So that to me was really surprising. And I did, within my sphere of clinical trial participants that I'm now connected to, I even like asked them, like, did this kind of stuff happen to you in the trial? And they all said no. However, there are other clinical trial participants who I am not as well connected with who will say some of these things happened to me. My therapist said something that I thought was really inappropriate. And I'm not denying that that happened, but what I can say is that the ones that I know really well at this point are just like, that's absolutely not what happened to me. So, um, yeah, I mean, there's there's a lot of people who are part of these clinical trials, and I just don't think there's any one narrative that covers them all. And I'm really suspicious of anybody who thinks that they have the authority to speak for a whole group of people, especially ones that they don't talk to, and people that they refuse to talk to. Nashay has never showed interest in hearing from me, or has never shown concern that their narrative is damaging and hurtful to some people. So I think it really raised a lot of alarm bells to me. And I think that's why I have gotten more involved, because I've gotten more involved in connecting with other clinical trial participants, and just wanting to be another voice in this space, um, to share my narrative. And hopefully that's helpful to some people who are trying to make sense of things. Because if I was on the outside of everything, I don't know what I would think. I would be confused.
Um, what do you think intent is here? Like, you've spent a lot of time thinking about this, obviously, and feeling a lot about it.
That's such a hard question, because it's so hard to guess people's intention, and it's such a like sensitive area to get into. I have guesses. Um, I did write about it in I wrote a rather long form like Substack writing about it. Um, I've I think um, I think it's a mixture of things
And we
potentially.
can
I think
couch this as speculative too. Like,
this
again, this
is
is wildly speculative because
this
we've
is
not really seen an honest answer.
right. This is speculative. And for anyone who's going to take this out of context and reframe it. I'm sure it's going to happen, but if you're listening to this whole thing, it's speculative. My speculation is that there is a mixture of things at play. I think there's probably a very real concern for sexual abuse. Um, and, Nashay has named that she's been a victim of sexual abuse. So I get where uh, victims of sexual abuse want to protect and call it out. They want to protect other survivors. They want to call out where they see it happening. So I think that is a sincere part of it. Um, I do think that there are other intentions involved as well. And this is hard to say because it is sort of piecing things together, but if you go back to like reading some of the earlier symposia writings and reading things from David Nichols, there is this like, we cannot let our healthcare system, which is a for-profit healthcare system, get a hold of these substances because they are inherently liberatory. And if the wrong people get a hold of them with the wrong agenda, then we are losing something that has this amazing potential for good. And so, therefore, we should do whatever possible by any means necessary to stop this from happening. I'm sure David Nichols has said this, right? There are screenshots of it that people have shared earlier on Facebook. So there is this sort of like, by any means necessary, destroy this movement. And then you can sink your teeth into the negative threads that weave in and out of the space, and just seize that narrative and apply it to the whole thing and destroy the public perception of what's going on. If you read, I don't know if you've read the Nashay's testicular hallucinations. Have you read that?
I try not to read any of Anish's stuff.
It's really hard to read. I tried, so I read parts of it before and I was just like, whoa, really difficult language, like kind of hard to, you have to like break down the sentences. It honestly almost sounds laughably pretentious if I'm being completely honest, because it's so academic jargony. And then when you kind of break it down, you're like, okay, this is not that difficult of a concept. It sounds very academic, which is again this like, why are you not communicating clearly? But what I gather from it is that there's people in Silicon Valley who have these ideas that are very dangerous, where we don't care about the earth, we want to fly to space and live on Mars, like this fucking crazy Elon Musk, type stuff. And there's this kind of like you call it long-termism, where you don't really care about what's happening now, you're looking into the future, and the casualties that you're causing now don't really matter because we're dreaming up this incredible future and wealthy people are going to take over the world and have better solutions for humanity, that type of thing. And I think the argument is that if those people are funding psychedelic startups and other for-profits psychedelic therapy things, that those ideas are going to infiltrate through to the therapy, and we're going to turn everyone into this like Silicon Valley testicular hallucination type individual. We're going to create a bunch of Elon Musks. That's what I gather from it. I haven't talked to
Can
anybody
I
about what the
characterize my suspicion a little better on the
yes.
kind of like fun? So here's like in my conversations with a lot of that team years and years ago, there was this, I think in a sense rightfully paranoid thing
Yeah.
where they didn't want anybody with cash to be involved. because they're
Mm,
very distrustful of anybody with like major capital, which is
yeah,
kind of fair.
sure.
Um, and then to your point earlier, very much so. Any means are justified to get the ends we want, which I think I heard at
Yeah,
one point quite literally kind of this anarcho-communist sentiment where like anything, all structures of power need to be destroyed before any meaningful change can be made
yeah,
in any way. And that's strikingly similar to like a Stalin-esque worldview, which I think is not, if Stalin, like the concept there, this is a concept like a lot of political thinkers call it like the tankies. If Stalin only did a little bit better of a job, the world would be in a, or if, AKA killed a lot more people, like
mm,
the world would be in a better position than it is today, which is creepy. And then, then bringing in kind of the Peter Thiel, Christian Angermeyer paranoia around
yeah,
Palantir, which is also somewhat well justified these days. And so, what happens when like medical health records get included into like a larger kind of police state that is actually like integrated marketing to it as well? A police
yeah,
state with integrated marketing and forced wearables that RFK is now talking about. So, like, there is this weird kind of Brave New World concept that's like
yeah.
totally a thing there, but like why be super rude to clinical trial participants to like get your ends?
Good question. I don't think that's helpful at all. And my critique of that line of thinking that you just named,
Mm-hmm.
possibly better than I did, is that the people who are funding these um, startups, they're not the therapists. They are not the ones who are working with traumatized people. So there is quite a big buffer in between whatever their ideas for the world are, if they even are as bad as we fear, um, and the way the therapy works. Like it's not connected. They're just not the therapists, and we do need really well trained therapists to be doing this work. It's very sensitive work. You really need to be, you need to know what you're doing and have a lot of discernment and training, like very thorough training. This is not something that anyone should just jump into. But yeah, those individuals are not the therapist. So I don't really think that their ideas are being like um, you know, pushed on the people who are doing this therapy. So that's my so that's one question mark for me, a big question mark. And then the other one is, since we know that trauma is very real and very pervasive, and people need much better help than the current treatments are able to offer. They don't work for a lot of people, they work for some. But um, my perspective is that if you have people who have been less effective as individuals, interpersonally, as a parent, in their career, whatever it might be, because they are suffering from PTSD or social anxiety or OCD or whatever this is, if they are able to heal from those things, they will be hopefully better parents, more effective in their lives, um, less damaging to those around them. We know that sometimes, but if you have PTSD or other things, you can lash out at people. Like there's all these things. So um, it's really, we will live in a better world if people are healthier, more mentally healthy, which hopefully these treatments are able to achieve. And I also happen to think that individuals who have been through really difficult and complicated trauma, when they have come out the other end and are able to function better in the world, um, can actually be very uh, powerful and effective, individuals in helping other people with their trauma, being more sensitive to people. Like I am much more empathetic now towards individuals who are struggling, people who are going through addiction, all of these things. My perspective on mental health and it's just like my way of seeing people has changed for the better. I am a more empathetic and sensitive individual. And I think the fruits of all of the work that I've done are pretty apparent in, my life and my career. So I hope I didn't lose connection with you. We'll see if you come
No, we're
back.
we're good. We're good. So I'm kind of curious about this. There's a lot of conversation around accusations of being involved in a cult, which I think is really complicated. And I really wonder about, how that felt for you to be kind of accused of being in a cult, and like was that like
Okay,
deeply
I'm still
uncomfortable?
alive. I can't see Joe. Joe, can you hear me?
Yes. Test 1 2, test 1 2. Mm-mm. Let's see. Um,
Are we
my
back?
signal seems fine. Um,
Hmm.
Nothing still?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure if I should move closer to my router, but
I think it
I
might
think
be
we're
me.
back. Okay,
Yeah.
we're
So,
back.
could you give us a little bit about the cult aspect? Like, what was going on there with like cult accusations?
Yeah. Um, Cult accusations. So as people who are following along with Symposia and Nishay have seen, Nishay wrote this pretty long piece calling out MAPS as a therapy cult, and that the MDMA clinical trials were the vehicle for indoctrinating individuals into this cult, which is really, really, really bold thing to say.
Sounds
Like
like an expensive way to get somebody into a cult.
crazy expensive and also a really bad way to get people into a cult. I mean, like after you finish the clinical trial, you're not even connected with other clinical trial participants. So I was like, where's the cult? Like, I don't even know anyone else to talk to. I really had to take pretty great lengths to find other clinical trial participants. And the way that I experienced the therapy was very, very much designed in a way to not force ideas upon me. Actually, I think the the way the model has been designed is to give, from my understanding and from the way I experienced, the way the model was designed is to give the patient participant a lot of freedom in how to explore their trauma, how to try to resolve the complexity and the confusion that has resulted from what they experienced. And there is trust in the medicine, MDMA, to bring about the things that individual needs to confront in order to face uh, the difficult emotions that they've been, essentially shoving down and trying to ignore, which we know like really doesn't work. You can't really function well when you're constantly in a state of panic and trying to pretend that you're not, and all of these things. But it's a really sensitive thing to put somebody through. You're sort of you have to be gentle with it. And the critique that I've seen from Niche is that the therapy is designed to push people beyond their limits and to break them, to try to amplify their trauma so that they feel it to the fullest potential, the fullest extent of it, and then it's expressed from them and the trauma is expressed from them. That is not the way the therapy was introduced to me. That's not how it was explained to me. I wasn't even familiar with any of that, any of those theories until I read Niche's critique. So what I can say is that that is certainly not the way it's being practiced across the board. So that's why I think Niche's critiques are really, really bold, because Niche is speaking as if they're aware of everyone's experience, and Niche is not aware of everybody's experience. So it's certainly possible that, well, we know that there's one set of therapists who really grossly misapplied many aspects of the therapeutic modality. On the Canadian site, the Richard Jensen and Donna Dreyer. I mean, it's on video, so you can't really argue it, but I haven't yet encountered anybody else who's really had any experience that even resembles that. So it's just not what I experienced. It doesn't really seem to be the consensus that I'm seeing when I meet other clinical trial participants. They're not really reflecting that. Again, I haven't spoken to all clinical trial participants. I don't know everybody's story. I know that there are clinical trial participants who didn't benefit from it, who had a bad experience, who became more suicidal during or after and things like that. Some of them, look at the entirety of their experience and think that they came out better despite all of that. That they had lows, but were able to come to a much better place. Some people say, no, I didn't get better. I just got worse, and I didn't like the therapeutic modality. It didn't work for me. So there's certainly people who didn't, resonate or respond to the therapy modality. Maybe it was their particular therapist, whatever it was. There's the complexity of the human experience is just. It's so multifaceted. There are so many angles. There's so many people who are part of the trial. There's so many dynamics at play. But I guess I would say, like, in general, I'm just really not seeing that Niche's perspective is being reflected among like a wide set of people that I have been in contact with. So, and people really, people who are critics of MAPS, really latch on to this cult accusation and are kind of like weaponize it, and it's been weaponized towards me. And someone like Sasha even said to me that I'm simply regurgitating MAPS talking points, and which essentially is like, I can't think for myself, I can't speak for myself, I'm just saying what MAPS wants me to say, which is like, what am I, brainwashed? I mean, like, it's just not true. So I think the cult accusation is quite concerning, from the perspective of it being weaponized to sort of gaslight people.
Mm-hmm.
And and we spoke about this before. I think this was an interesting point. I am also seeing it elsewhere too. Like right now, Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, is getting some pushback. I think it's always gotten pushback. I think he's always gotten pushback over his several decades of being in this field. But
I'd love to really do some writing on this critique, by the way. I just haven't done a treatment on it yet, but I plan to.
I would too. It has like really kind of pissed me off, but I've only seen it's like these two people and I think there's just like a handful of people who are writing these articles like the body keeps the score is bullshit. And then other people are reblogging it. I think what's interesting is that the two individuals, the two men who I encountered who were um, spinning this narrative and reposting it, they're both white men who are straight, as far as I can tell. Um, and at least one of them I know has said, I have not experienced trauma and I don't have PTSD. I've never had PTSD. And I asked him, what angers you so much about this book? And he is essentially sick and tired of so many people saying that they have trauma or that they have PTSD. And he thinks that, Gabor Mate and Bessel van der Kolk have expanded the definition of trauma so much that it applies to almost anybody. And that people who haven't really experienced trauma now think that they have trauma and this is really bad and it's a cult. But he agrees that, at least one of them agrees that the overall message that the body contains wisdom, that the body doesn't lie, is true, and that body-based therapies are very effective. So in my experience, that's like a large part of what people take from this book, that they resonate with somatic symptoms as being a result of their trauma, and that working with somatic modalities has been more helpful to them than talk therapy. But I also think that we as a country have come to a reckoning that trauma is very widespread, especially after the Me Too movement. Like, you have to remember that this book became popular after the Me Too movement blew up and during the pandemic. So we had two very major reckonings of trauma. The first one being that trauma had always been there and sexual abuse has always been prevalent, but that we've been in denial of it. And the second one being that the pandemic was traumatic to a lot of people because a lot of people were dying. So it makes a lot of sense that the public would be like, I really resonate with this book because I've been experiencing these types of symptoms and I have found these experience, whatever the experience is, to be traumatic. So it makes a lot of sense that these two individuals, and I guess in this case, the Body Keeps the Score book, really found an audience at these times. And I wanted to bring up another point on this pushback that I only recently learned about, which is one of our first, psychologists, right? Was he one of the first people in the mental health field who really helped to establish the field of psychoanalytic therapy, like Sigmund Freud. Early on in his career, when he was working with women, came to the conclusion that the women he was working with were experiencing symptoms of sexual exploitation from their family members and other men in their lives, and that it was causing a great deal of harm and mental illness. It wasn't easy for him to come to this conclusion because it's like shocking. But and this I found out about this in Judith Herman's book Trauma and Recovery. And I actually had not known that before. I did not quite know that. Like, my sort of concept of Freud was that he introduced a lot of ideas that we now laugh at, like the Oedipus complex and like that, young girls or young boys are sexually attracted to their parents and that type of thing. So what essentially happened was that these ideas that Freud was promoting or trying to bring to the public were not well received. So Um, it was kind of like career suicide for him. He just couldn't continue. He was kind of laughed out of the profession and had to like come up with some other explanation, which is where these other ideas came into play. So that it gave me a renewed appreciation for him. And I think it's really sad that that backlash happens because we could have really made a lot of progress back then, but the public wasn't ready for it. And I think I fear that the backlash against, people like Bessel van der Kolk and Gabor Mate is another iteration of that same theme of people just not really wanting to recognize that, yes, like sexual trauma is extremely widespread, and other trauma as well.
Like we've got pretty reasonable figures already that is pretty easy to point to. And I often wonder if those are like underscored, like it's actually like more than what kind of most people suggest it is. So those figures where they go and like survey a lot of people and say how, were you sexually abused? And like,
Mm,
we can get to like 1 in 5 or 1 in 4. Um, and then, it's in my history, not personally, my like genetic lineage, there's a bunch of it. And
yeah,
like it's wild. And I know plenty of people. I've worked with plenty of people. Like it's everywhere, right? And it's not um I'm gonna say something triggering. I read a book about one of the kind of most vicious college campuses in America. I won't
mm,
name it because I'm told the author is problematic now. But the idea is that just what are police doing around these things? And like,
mm,
are police resources going towards investigation of assault allegations, right? And the answer is no. The data is really clear that police aren't protecting these people at all. Um, and this is, maybe there's cases where, yes, some police departments do okay, but like largely it's not. Um,
no, I know only one I mean, I know so many sexual abuse survivors. I think like when you are a survivor of sexual abuse, you tend to like know more about it in your community because you'll kind of connect with other people. And I think like in my own when I first started to be able to explain to anybody what had happened, I was like shocked that they would be like, me too, me too, me too. This is why the Me Too movement happened. And I was like, holy shit. Like, this is now really scary because the person that did that to you, I know him. Um, so that's, and not that it's always men. There are exceptions to all of these things, but by and large. And, and it's not just partners or boyfriends or people on dates, it's like fathers and brothers. And yeah, I just was really, it was just, I think it really like amplified my trauma too, because then it feels like, who do I trust? Like it's all of these men that I thought were good. It's like a Bill Cosby moment over and over again, where like our beloved Bill Cosby did all these awful things, but then it's like, oh, it's my teacher, my friend's brother, all these things. So it's just extraordinarily prevalent, and it is really shocking. And I think in many cases, or in the majority, all of the cases that I know, except for one, where it was a stranger who broke into her house. But the majority of cases I know, it's people that are close to you. So it's not easy to come out and tell everybody about it, especially when you don't have a language for it. And if it's your family member or it's your teacher, there's so many reasons why it's so difficult to tell people, because then that you're uh, this information is going to hurt a lot of people, and you're going to break a lot of hearts, if and then I think that plays into why there's this denial. So all of these problems are just really, really complicate things. Um, and taking legal action when you're already completely traumatized and can barely function and don't have the resources is another thing that adds to it. If it's been 5, 6 years since it happened, you're just starting to be able to talk about it, that person lives across state lines, you don't have any proof, then taking legal action doesn't even seem like an option. So yeah, there's another thing. What, I don't know where I was going to go with that, but it's really difficult. I guess I just never feel like you can underplay how prevalent it is once you're sort of in the know. I'm constantly shocked at the things that people tell me, and I know that it's true. You can just feel it when someone tells you, and it's like the stories are just, they're like too gross to even repeat, like the things that people do like behind closed doors. So
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
um yeah, and yeah, we still don't have good solutions for it, and i I think the psychedelic space still needs better solutions for it. I mean, like, it's still very difficult to know who to go to, and how I think all systems need to improve on being able to deal with these things in a way that doesn't cause further traumatization, doesn't, I mean, in the case of maps, like blowing the whistle on maps, then I don't think maps handled it well. They didn't. They did not have a good way of handling it. They were scared, and um, they didn't fucking handle it well. So that backfired, as we've seen. And I am sure, yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you're, I don't know, I don't want to speculate too much, but I can only imagine how difficult it is to have one case, potentially destroy an entire 30 years, 40 years work, or several cases. Let's say I don't want to just keep saying there's only one thing because I don't know, but let's say there were more things like this that happened, that we don't know about. Like I don't know any other things, but there were also a lot of situations where that didn't happen and people found a lot of healing. So I think that's why the importance of being able to pinpoint where it's happening, name who it's happening with, and not unfairly applying it to individuals who were not involved and did not cause harm to their patients. And I just think that's really important, as well. And I don't know what the ultimate answer is to, we just, there just needs to be a better way to report things. I don't know
So
if we're there
it's
yet.
clear then that, like, also it's not necessarily the best solution to abuse trial participants.
That is, yes. Are you, yeah, we don't
Yeah,
want to.
I've been listening to a lot of Plato and like doing Socrates. So it's like, oh yeah, like let's just bring
Don't
it
do it.
back to like really essential things. Like there are people out there abusing clinical trial participants after they're out
Yeah,
of the trial.
yeah. It's that story is crazy. Um,
And there's still
it's
people
crazy. Yeah,
afraid to talk about it.
yeah,
Right. And, let's not get into specifics here, but you even saw this happening at the MAPS conference. And like, I think I see it all the time, like, still.
are you
Um,
talking about just really badly run clinical trials or sexual abuse particularly?
I'm talking about like your scenario. like where you had a good
Um,
experience and people are critiquing you as an individual. And I'm saying also, like, yes, other clinical trial participants are afraid to come out. And then
yeah,
there's also um, people who are, academics who should have a lot of leeway are afraid to even comment for fear of bullying and like cyber attacks and whatever,
yeah,
doxing. And like,
yeah,
it's really an unfortunate situation that we find ourselves in here. And, yes, some clinical trials do need to be commented on, but
yeah.
I think we should do it skillfully, tactfully, honestly, openly, and, try to have as much integrity as we can when
I
we do
lost
that.
you.
Ah, bummer. I said so many smart things. Do you have me still? Um, test, test. I'll stand by. Um, yeah, that's too
All right,
bad.
I
Our
lost
connections.
Joe. I think I'll just keep talking until he comes back.
Please.
Yeah, I think that there is definitely a lot of fear in um, speaking the truth on the other side as well. Um, I have heard from like journalists who are reporting in the space that they've spoken to people who are fearful of talking about their positive stories because of whatever reason they don't want to be lashed out at or perhaps accused of um, like I have feared being accused of brushing abuse under the rug by reporting on my positive experience. Um, I think that's, and I feel like I've been in a sort of awkward position as a victim of abuse who had a positive experience in the trial, not wanting to brush somebody else's experience under the rug, but I had a life saving experience in it in the trial. So it's a complicated position to be in. And I think when the critical voices are so strong and so are using very sort of like bullying type methods to get their point across, it is um, really scary to want to stick your neck out, which I'm doing right now. Um, and it is a little nerve wracking.
Am I back?
You're back. Yes.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. I don't know where you got cut off. I don't
I
know.
I was kind of talking about like validating the truth that yes, there are problems in clinical trials,
Shoot.
not only just at the Lycos trials, but also elsewhere. Um, like you alerted me to something that I'm really excited to dig into because it's a topic that's been
I
close
lost
to
you
me for
again.
a while. Oh man, still. um, how about, is this any better? Test test 1 2.
I just keep losing him.
Is there anything there now? Becca, could you refresh? Can you refresh the browser? Test test 1 2. Sorry, everybody. We'll be right back, hopefully. Live streams are not always the easiest. All right, how about now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, um, let's like suspecting that that issue is going to come back, maybe we could share some closing thoughts, and we'll just plan on doing this again soon with you.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Yeah, I'm sorry that we got
It's all
disconnected.
good.
I feel like that was a really good thing to go into, but there's so much to talk about. So, closing thoughts. Um, should I keep talking if I lose you?
Please.
Okay. Um, well, the I'll share this. In my desire to connect with other clinical trial participants, not only because the clinical trial itself is really wild to go through and healing from trauma is wild to go through, but just navigating the post FDA rejection landscape and all of the ideas floating out there. Um, I have been in support of a new initiative that has been started by another clinical trial participant named Pedram Dara. And our organization, or his organization, is called Psychedelic Lived Experiences. And we are hosting a summit in November. Um, if you go to psychedelic lived experiences, .com, then you will just be able to see more information. If you are a clinical trial participant that is interested in connecting with other clinical trial participants, please reach out to us. I think our, I think what we have all agreed with, all clinical trial participants that I've met have really desired to connect with other people who've been through this very unique experience. So we're really trying to create a strong community of people who have actually lived through the clinical trials. We're mostly focusing on MDMA clinical trial participants right now, but we've had a lot of other like psilocybin clinical trials individuals reach out to us. So we hope to connect with researchers, therapists, anybody working in this field to really shape the narrative, improve outcomes, reduce risks, all of those things through the wisdom of people with lived experiences, as opposed to people who are coming from the outside and thinking that they know what's going on. We think the experience of the lived experience of individuals who have gone through the trials and the different, even not trials, just psychedelic therapy in general, really need to be the most prominent voice. So more to come with that. We're just getting it off the ground. The summit is going to be to raise funds so we can really keep this going. I don't even, I'm just volunteering right now. We're not making any money at this point. So hopefully that will change and we can really start to shift the narrative from a place that is more nuanced and more truthful. So I think I'll leave it at that. But yeah, psychedeliclivedexperiences.com.
Well, thank you so much, Becca. I hope we can do it again in the very near term and dig into a little bit more data. Um,
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, Joe. Definitely hope to continue this and talk to you soon.
all right, thank you.
All right. Thank you.